welcoming you to today's episodes of Fakes, Frauds, and Phonies. We'll be looking at one of the most intriguing forgeries of all time, featuring no less than Hermann Goering, notorious Nazi and head of the Luftwaffe, and a very avid art collector, if not art thief, and an easily fooled expert, plus a master forger who fooled them all. Well, almost. The Netherlands' Abraham Bredius was a key player in the art world of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He was a major collector of paintings, and The Hague's Bredius Museum now houses his numerous acquisitions. He directed the Mauritshuis Museum, also in The Hague, for 2 decades, and in his day, he was considered by many to be the world's foremost connoisseur of 17th century Dutch art. Bredius was consequently the least likely victim of a forger. And yet, in 1936, Bredius was retired and living in Monte Carlo when an ex-member of the Dutch government came to visit. This fellow, a man beyond suspicion, presented Bredius with an extraordinary painting, a rather bizarrely executed and unlikely religious scene titled The Disciples at Emmaus, allegedly a lost Vermeer. Bredius was impressed. Literally, within minutes of examining the work, he declared it authentic, adding that it was the most outstanding example of Vermeer's work he had ever seen. Bredius had long harbored a hypothesis about Vermeer. He, along with other art historians, had found a gap of roughly 10 years in Vermeer's biography, and Bredius filled this decade with the theory that the great Dutch artist had, like many of his contemporaries, traveled to Italy, where Caravaggio had exercised a marked influence on his work. Based on this assumption, Bredius postulated that upon Vermeer's return to the Netherlands, he'd painted a series of religious paintings, the only known example extant being a portrait of Martha and Mary. Until, of course, the Disciples at Emmaus suddenly surfaced, seemingly out of nowhere. The fact that the painting fit Bredius's theory as snugly as a piece of jigsaw puzzle obviously outweighed the mysterious provenance. But it's nonetheless difficult to understand his instantaneous attribution of this rediscovered Vermeer. Was it really based on well-founded scholarship? Or was it the expression of an old man's wish to prove his pet theory correct? A brief look at Vermeer's life makes it difficult to figure out when and how he could have taken a trip to the Mediterranean. He could barely make ends meet in the Netherlands, constantly struggling to keep his huge family fed, housed, and clothed. In fairness, though, little is known for certain about Vermeer's life. Official documents are the only solid references historians have relating mundane events like the paying of taxes or the signing of a new lease. There is no mention of Vermeer by contemporary diarists or historians. His life is an enigma, and although considered one of the greatest painters of his time, Vermeer lived in obscurity and remained relatively unknown until his rediscovery by critics in the 19th century. But what argues against this purported trip to Italy and exposure to Caravaggio is what scholars do know about Vermeer's life. The official recording of his chronically impecunious state and the fact that only some 35 to 40 paintings are solidly attributed to him, and only 3 of these are dated with any certainty. The Procuress of 1656, The Astronomer, 1668, and its companion piece, The Geographer, of 1669. Why such a paltry output? For one thing, Vermeer's wife gave birth to, ready for this, 15 children. Poor thing. He was consequently far too busy working in his father's inn to feed this horde to be wasting his time before an easel. And as far as anyone knows, he left Delft only once in his life, taking a quick return trip to The Hague. There is no record that he ever again wandered from his home. Where and how Bredius shoehorns a trip to Italy into Vermeer's life is anyone's guess. Here was Bradius then, long retired and well into his 80s, confronted by a work validating his lifelong theory about Vermeer. He was thrilled to certify the newly discovered Vermeer's incontestable authenticity, despite all the evidence to the contrary. The painting nonetheless underwent a battery of tests and examinations to confirm his attribution. The technology of the time confirmed that the canvas, the pigments, and the wood of the stretcher all dated to the 17th century. The findings thus supported Bradius's initial stylistic analysis, although the obvious departure in quality and manner of the work was off-putting to many experts. One American buyer, representing a prestigious New York gallery, took one look at the work and declared it a horrible fake. But Bradius's verdict on the painting stuck, and it was eventually sold as an authentic Vermeer for more than $300,000, an enormous sum at the time. By 1936, only a handful of paintings had been correctly attributed to Vermeer. Then, quite suddenly, and within a few months, Bradius was up to his knees in Vermeers, 8 in all, several of them on religious themes, to his great joy, and each one brought to Bradius by the same ex-member of the Dutch government, and despite a persistently obscure provenance, attributed with as much alacrity as the first one. There were dissenting voices, but no one was listening. Contemporary scholarship accepted them all as genuine Vermeers. Even Hermann Goering, the Third Reich's grasping art lover, purchased one of them. Now that's it for today, because next week, well, we're going to look and see a lot more of Hermann Goering, who makes another appearance, and we meet Han van Meegeren, a failed artist, but a very successful forger, until he gets caught. Now, the way he gets caught is truly fascinating. Well, that's it for this episode of Fakes, Frauds, and Phonies. Please subscribe, and if you're a victim of art fraud, please write to me. My email is fakesandfrauds, all in one word, at writeme, WRITEME.com. In closing, please note that an illustrated print version of Fakes, Frauds, and Phonies is available at Amazon worldwide, in Kindle or paperback format. So this is your host, Mark Luke Carrier, saying bye-bye for now.